Welcome to episode 79 of the 3am Fear podcast. It was a cold night in 1974. Famous author Stephen King was working on his book, The Stand, and living in Boulder, Colorado, the United States. One weekend, he and his wife decided to take a break and went to Estes Park, about an hour away. They stayed at the famous Stanley Hotel, which was open for its last day of the season. When they arrived, almost everyone had left, and they were the last people to be staying there that night. Stephen King and his wife stayed in room 217. Once they had checked in, his wife went to bed, and Stephen King decided to roam the halls and went down to the hotel bar where drinks were being served by a bartender named Grady. Once he was done for the night, he decided to return to his room, that is room 217, and that's when his imagination fired up. The hotel was in a remote location. That is, there was nothing nearby. It was huge in size, and at the same time, it had a very spooky legend. Later, when Stephen King went into the bathroom and pulled back a pink curtain for the tub, which had claw feet, he thought and said, quote, "What if someone died here?" At that moment, I knew I had a book. End quote. That night, as he went to bed, he had a terrifying dream. In his nightmare, he saw a fire hose hanging in the hallway outside his room. The hose started to move on its own and started chasing his 3-year-old son. His son started running down the hallway, looking back in fear and screaming as the hose chased him. Suddenly, Stephen King woke up. He realized it was a nightmare. He was sweating and scared. He lit a cigarette and thought about the frightening dream. And that dream gave him an idea which would later turn into a famous novel and a very famous movie, The Shining. Hello and welcome to the 3am Fear podcast. I'm Nikita Ferrao, mystery and thriller author. On this podcast, I talk about real crimes and real people. Due to the graphic nature of some of this content, listener discretion is advised. You can find the episode show notes on my website 3amfear.com. Let's get started. The Stanley Hotel is a large 140-room hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, near the Rocky Mountain National Park. In 1903, Freeland Oscar Stanley, the man who invented the steam-powered car, became very sick with tuberculosis, a dangerous lung disease. At that time, doctors believed that the best treatment was to breathe fresh air, get lots of sunlight, and eat healthy food. So, like many others who were sick with tuberculosis at that time, Stanley decided that he would go to the Rocky Mountains for the clean air. He and his wife Flora first arrived in Denver, Colorado, and then moved to Estes Park for the summer. Now, during the summer, Stanley's health improved a lot. His doctor had first told him that he had very less days to live, but after he came here, his health started to improve. In fact, Stanley would live to be 91 years old before he would die of heart attack in 1940, just 1 year after his wife died. By 1907, Stanley had fully recovered, but he wasn't that happy. The place was very quiet. He loved it because it was quiet, but at the same time, there was nothing around him except for that one place. That's when he got the idea, why not turn this into a resort town? In 1907, he started building his dream hotel, Stanley Hotel, a 48-room luxury hotel only for the wealthy people, those who were sick and who wanted to come and have some fresh air. this hotel was the perfect place for them. Stanley and Flora fell in love with the place. Now you have to remember that this is the early 1900s, that is 1907. So at that time, this hotel was very modern. There was latest technology like electric lights, running water, telephones, and even cars. That is why this hotel was only for the rich people. Poor people could not afford to live here. The hotel, called Stanley Hotel, was opened in 1909 and was a luxurious place. Wealthy guests would come to the hotel to relax, play games, drink, and enjoy the fresh mountain air during summer. They even built their own hydropower plant to provide electricity as the hotel was deep in the mountains. Now here are some things about the Stanley Hotel, especially connected to its history and architecture. So if you want to skip a few minutes ahead, you can, but these will help you understand exactly how big of a deal the Stanley Hotel was and why people were dying to be here. Now the Stanley Hotel National Register Historic District has 11 important buildings. These buildings were the main hotel, a concert hall, a carriage house, the manager's cottage, a gatehouse, a smaller bed and breakfast called the lodge, which was later called the manor house. Now Stanley designed all these buildings with the help of some people in Denver. The wood used for these buildings came from places like the National Park, the nearby lake, the hidden valley. It was all close by. Everything was brought in together and this beautiful place was built. If any materials were not found nearby, then they were brought in by trains first, and then from the station they were brought in by wagons. When the Stanley Hotel opened in 1909, it was one of the first hotels in the country to have electricity for everything. Some lights could also work with gas. Every guest room in the hotel had a telephone, and each pair of rooms shared a bathroom. Now, as said, the Stanley Hotel looks like one of those old buildings from New England, but it was built with modern comfort and cleanliness in mind. It had a beautiful design and it was very comfortable. Now, along with being a hotel for the rich people to come and enjoy their vacations, the Stanley Hotel also was a place for tuberculosis patients to come and recover. Now, places like this where tuberculosis patients could go and relax and recover, these places were called sanatoriums. And it is said that the Stanley Hotel was also a sanatorium, only that they didn't want to promote it as a sanatorium. They wanted to call it as a resort or a relaxing place, but not a sanatorium. Because once again, they wanted to cater to the rich people. They did take in sick people, but they mostly wanted to cater to the rich people. But over time, the hotel became known for its scary stories. One of the most famous is, as I said in the beginning, of Stephen King. In 1974, when Stephen King and his wife came to stay in room 217, it gave him the idea to write a famous horror book, The Shining. He had a nightmare, and that is what gave him the idea for the book. One of the most famous haunted rooms to date in that hotel is room 217. People say it's very creepy, and some even have strange feelings when they visit. One of the most famous ghost stories is about a maid named Elizabeth Wilson. Now, it is said that in 1911, during a thunderstorm, the hotel lost power. Elizabeth went to room 217 with a candle to light the gas lamps. Suddenly, there was a gas leak in the room, and when she entered with the candle, it caused a huge explosion. Usually, when there is a gas leak, you can smell the gas. At that time, the gas had no smell, so it was impossible for anyone to know if there was a leak. So when Elizabeth entered the room, she had no idea what she was entering into. It is said that she was thrown in the explosion and both of her ankles were broken. Along with Elizabeth, 7 African American waiters were also injured. Different reports give different explanations to what happened, but unfortunately, to this day, we don't know how that gas leak happened. Now, getting back to Elizabeth, when she went into that room with a candle to light the gas lamps and she opened the door, the room exploded. The explosion was so powerful that it destroyed 10% of the hotel, taking out the entire west wing. Luckily, the explosion put itself out, or the whole hotel might have burnt down. Elizabeth was badly burnt in the explosion. The floor under her broke and she fell down. She broke her ankles, legs, ribs, and many other bones, but she survived. People believe that because at that time women used to wear tight corsets, that tight corset might have actually protected her internal organs. Stanley took full responsibility, even though the power outage was not his fault. He paid for all of Elizabeth's medical bills and even gave her a job for the rest of her life at the hotel. She was so happy that she worked there until she died in the 1950s. Now people say that her ghost haunts the room 217. She is known for opening and closing doors and making people believe that she is there. Some couples who aren't married say that they feel like a ghost is there between them at night, keeping them far away from each other. It is believed that this is because back in the day, women were not allowed to sleep with men before marriage, and Elizabeth's ghost is here trying to protect their reputation. For decades, the Stanley Hotel was seen as this luxurious place where you could rewind and enjoy and relax. But by the 1970s, the hotel had fallen. No one was taking good care of it, there wasn't much of investment, and by then, it didn't look like a hotel that belonged to the rich. But after Stephen King's book came out, the hotel once again became popular. Getting back to, many people who stay in room 217 at the Stanley Hotel say that they have seen the ghost of Miss Wilson, the maid. One couple shared that they felt her between them in the bed and they couldn't sleep well because of it. Miss Wilson's ghost is known for protecting people's reputation, especially women who aren't married. Another strange thing is that guests have said that when they left their room, Miss Wilson would come, unpack their bags, and even tidy up their things. They never called anyone to clean their room, but when they came back, their room was clean. People often called the front desk to thank them, but the hotel staff said that they never sent anything. It's Miss Wilson who's doing it. Yes, the hotel staff also agreed to it. When Stephen King was there, he never saw Miss Wilson's ghost. All he saw was this young boy, and that's what gave him the idea for the story. The hotel's owner, Stanley, died in 1940, but people say that his ghost still visits the hotel. Staff members say that they have seen him in the billiard room or the bar. His wife Flora also haunts the hotel, and sometimes people said that they could even hear her play the piano when no one was there near the piano. Another scary room is room 401. Guests, especially women, have said that they have felt as if someone was touching their hair, or they have even felt as if there was an arm around them when there was no one there. People think that this might be the ghost of Lord Dunraven, a man who owned the land before the hotel was built. Room 401 at the Stanley Hotel is said to be one of the creepiest rooms. Not the scariest, the creepiest. Because this room is haunted by an unfriendly male ghost. Some women have said that they have been inappropriately touched by this man. One man even claimed that his wedding ring mysteriously moved off the bathroom counter and fell down the sink drain without anyone touching it. Also, many people have said that they have felt this invisible force as if someone is pushing them into bed. Others have said that they have felt as if someone was sitting at the foot of the bed But when they turned the light on, they didn't find anyone. But on the bed covers, there was this marking, as if someone was just sitting there and had gotten up. Another room, room 428, is where people said that they have seen the ghost of a cowboy. One couple woke up in the middle of the night and saw a cowboy walking around the end of their bed. They thought that he was a real man and politely asked him to leave. And he did. But before he left, he leaned over the woman like he was going to kiss her. Many women who stayed in that room have said that they have seen this cowboy and he had tried to kiss them. Some believe that this was the ghost from an Old West cowboy who was hanged for murder. Another room is room 407. People say that in this room there is a friendly ghost who helps everyone. On the 4th floor of the hotel, many guests have heard sounds of children running and laughing. This floor used to be where the children and their nanny stayed in olden days. Guests have said that they have heard or even seen these children playing. In another part of the hotel, people say that they have seen a woman dressed in an old Victorian gown. You know those huge gowns that women used to wear in olden times with a very tight waist, a tight corset, that gown. This ghost does not seem to like wearing modern clothes because apparently she has been telling guests to start wearing clothes like her because modern clothes are not appropriate. These were most of the haunted rooms and the hallways of the Stanley Hotel. But that's not it. There are many other locations, and here are a few more of the scariest spots. The Vortex. The grand staircase in the hotel's lobby is called the Vortex. It is believed that there is a lot of spiritual energy or a lot of ghosts that pass through this. People have said that they have felt cold spots or dizziness, as if someone was there or someone just passed through them. Some do believe it in a nice way that Mr. and Mrs. Stanley, the hotel's original owners, have been seen standing there on the stairs watching over the hotel. Now, how much of this is true, I don't know. Then comes the concert hall. Stanley built the concert hall especially for his wife Flora because she loved music. The stage has a trap door for dramatic entrances. The trap door opens, you can go inside the stage, you can come out from the stage. It's beautiful. Now Flora's ghost is said to play the piano late at night. Now there is another spirit called Paul who once worked at the hotel. After he died, it is said that his ghost is seen after 11 p.m. That is curfew time. If any of the guests are seen outside their rooms after 11 p.m., then Paul asks them to go back to their rooms because it's late at night. Tour groups have also said that they have seen flickering flashlights, and they believe that it is Paul who's doing this to get them to go back to their rooms. The Ice House. Now, as said, the Stanley Hotel was very modern for its time. And out of all the amazing things that it had an ice house. At that time, in the early 1900s, there were no refrigerators, no fridges, no refrigeration, no way to keep your food safe. That's when they had ice houses. They would keep these huge blocks of ice, and then they would keep items with these huge blocks of ice to protect them. Today, it's a museum with old Stanley steamer cars, but two ghosts are often seen here. One of them is said to be Billy, a shy child who appears in blurry photos. If you try to take a photo of yourself in this place, then you are bound to have a blurry figure in that photo. Pet cemetery. Outside the hotel, there's an old pet cemetery. Two animals are buried here. Cassie, the golden retriever dog, and Comanche, a white cat. And it is said that both of them are seen around the hotel. Underground caves. Believe it or not, under the hotel there are caves that were used by workers to move around. Some think that the limestone or the quartz that is in the cave, that is what you see on the surface of the caves, is what captures ghostly energy. Now, although it's been years that anyone has been using these caves to actually move around, employees say that they could smell fresh baked goods in the caves because they believe that this is from a pastry chef who used to work there when the hotel opened. In front of the hotel, there's a large hedge maze added in 2015. If you don't know what a hedge maze is, it is basically, you've seen those grass that is cut in different directions. So you walk in and then you try to find your way out. This is just a beautiful, nice version of it that is outside the hotel. Though there are no ghosts said to be here, it is said that when people try to pass through this maze, they start to feel very scared, very panicky, as if they are unable to find their way out. Now, no matter what the reason is, it is clear that something is happening in the Stanley Hotel because so many people could not be lying. I don't want to go too deep into Stephen King's book or the movie, but all I want to say is that this is where his idea came from. Richard Estep, a paranormal investigator who has visited many haunted places like castles and dungeons, he said that the Stanley Hotel is one of the top places for ghostly activity. What's interesting is that not a lot of people actually died here. Many haunted places are said to be haunted because people have died there and their ghost is roaming. But not a lot of people have died at the Stanley Hotel. Of course, people have grown old and died, but that's with any normal house. There is no tragedy attached to the Stanley Hotel. It's just the ghost. As said before also, not all the ghosts at Stanley Hotel are bad. This hotel is said to be a place for relaxation, for happiness, and that's why there are some good ghosts also here. So what do you think? Do you think the Stanley Hotel is haunted? Or do you think that these are all just stories, made up stories? The Stanley Hotel today is actually open and is a very famous tourist spot. People come here to see the amazing view and even stay there because it's connected to the famous movie and the book, The Shining. And of course, ghosts. Over the years, many ghost hunters have been coming here and trying to see if they could catch a ghost. You could rent a room here for about $500 a night. Visitors can also take tours and learn more about the hotel's history. So while talking about ghosts, I'll ask you a question. If you get a chance, would you spend a night at the Stanley Hotel? A big thank you to all my fellow listeners who have been listening and supporting this episode. Your reviews, your listens mean a lot. If you love this episode, if you love the stories that I put out, then please do leave a rating on whichever podcasting platform you're listening from. It would really mean the world to me. Other than this, I also have a YouTube and an Instagram page. I'll link it in the description. Do check it out. I have different stories on Instagram and I'm planning to put out some short horror stories on YouTube. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned. I am also an author, love fiction stories. If you want to check out my free fiction book, I'll link it in the description. I'll also link my other account in the description where I talk about fiction writing, travel, and I also will soon start sharing fiction stories. So stay tuned. So do follow me there. Thank you so much for everything. That's all for this week. Stay kind, stay safe, and see you next week.